The idea for Moby-Dick actually started with the late Terrence McNally. I remember him looking at me and saying, well, I want to do Moby-Dick. And I just remember thinking, how do you take that 800-page novel and make it into a workable libretto that will still fill the stage with the emotion and tell the story? It was just baffling to me. But then I looked at him and he had this smile and this twinkle in his eye, and being the great man of the theater that he was, I saw that he knew it was possible, and so suddenly I felt it was possible. Now, eventually Terrence had to withdraw from the project for personal reasons, and Gene Scheer stepped in.
My history with the book really started with this project, and my affection for it grew as I worked on the piece. And one of the things that drew me to it was the language right from the get-go. Melville had a fascination with Shakespeare, and he had Shakespeare open on his writing table in Arrowhead, where he wrote a good chunk of the book. And you can see that kind of influence. There are so many things in it. They're so musical and so deep, and yet the actual story of it is quite simple. And that's kind of a good point of departure for an opera.
And I started to think about the Pequod on the ocean and the vastness of the sky above, the depth of the ocean below. And yet here's the boat sort of floating up and down through that. And out of the blue, these chords emerged. And that suddenly became the seed for everything in the opera. Everything in the opera is based on this. And to make it feel more like the ocean, it started becoming those four chords, and that rising and falling short little four-note tune is everywhere in the score, and it's the basis for every character's music. I've never done a piece where there was something that central.
To me, as I was reading the book, it seemed that each character represented a different way of living one's life. Ahab is raging against the chaos of things. Stubb just laughs through life and doesn't take anything too seriously. Queequeg is sort of the soul of a person who has found a sort of equipoise in his life, sort of in an Eastern way of the abandonment of ego. And Starbuck is this religious guy. My boy says he's a morning prayers. I did with this libretto what I always do, which is to try to make sure that each character has their own voice that speaks to where they come from, who they are. The men have vowed thy vows.
Starbuck's big theme emerged in his scene, the last scene of Act One, the musket scene. He's in Ahab's cabin, Ahab is asleep, and he's wondering whether he should just kill Ahab and maybe save the whole crew. And yet he's a Quaker, he's this devout Quaker. This goes against everything he believes in.
Oh, Lord, is it murder to strike a would-be murderer in his bed?
He stops, he's got a rifle in his hand. Ahab is there. Starbuck is all bloody because he's been working on rendering a whale. And he sings, "Oh Lord, what shall I do? One touch and Starbuck may survive." And this emerged. And that just happened. And I went, whoa. And I left the studio for the day, and it just haunted me. And I was calling friends, and I said, okay, did I write this, or did I steal this from somewhere? Because it sounds like it's always been there, and yet it just came to me. And they said, no, I think you wrote that.
The big issues that the novel addresses, I think we've addressed. Race, America, this sense of ego, and living in a world where you're not in control, and how does one manage that? We didn't shy away from the depth of the novel, and yet we also wanted to tell a good yarn, you know, a good adventure story, which is what this is.
And it's a story that we see played out throughout history and throughout time, and maybe even today, where, you know, vulnerable people looking for purpose and connection suddenly find a leader who can unify them and go on this journey, and it leads to their demise and destruction. That's something that has played out through history and is likely to happen again and again and again, as long as there are people on the planet.